AITA for revealing my wife's lie about her pregnancy in front of her friends? I'm Eric, 39, and I had been married to Clara for 7 years when it all started to fall apart. Before that, I knew exactly how she took her coffee, which side of the bed she hated, and which old gray sweatshirt she stole from me every winter. I knew she liked the kitchen lights dim in the morning and that she always left half a glass of water on her nightstand. That was what made the beginning so confusing. I wasn't looking for a villain in my wife. I was trying to understand why the woman who had once made our life feel warm suddenly treated me like an obstacle she had to manage. For most of our marriage, we were ordinary in a way I used to appreciate. We argued about whether the thermostat was too low. We ordered the same takeout on Fridays. We had inside jokes that were not funny to anyone else. We weren't one of those couples posting anniversary tributes every month, but I thought we were solid. Then Clara became close with Sabrina. Sabrina was polished, generous, and used to moving through rooms where everything was expensive without anyone mentioning the price. She and Clara had known each other casually for a while, but the friendship became intense after Sabrina invited her to a charity brunch. From there, Clara started spending more time with Sabrina's circle. There were wine dinners, spa weekends, private shopping events, and resort trips. I was never directly told I wasn't welcome. That would have been easier to address. Instead, I just stopped being considered. Clara would say, "It's mostly the girls," even when husbands and boyfriends appeared in the pictures later. Or she would say, "You'd be bored." Sometimes she would tell me about plans after they had already been made. At first, I told myself it was healthy for her to have her own friends. Marriage didn't mean we had to do everything together. I meant that. I still mean it. But there is a difference between having a separate social life and gradually editing your spouse out of the life you present to other people. I noticed the changes in small pieces. Clara changed the password on her phone and laughed when I asked why. "Because it's my phone," she said. "Do I need permission?" I didn't say you needed permission. You're making it sound like I'm hiding something. I had only asked one question, but somehow I ended up apologizing. She started wearing a perfume I didn't recognize. When I mentioned it, she said Sabrina had given her a sample. She began buying dresses that fit the group's style. Clean lines, expensive-looking fabrics, nothing like the clothes she had worn before. That alone wasn't suspicious. People change. What bothered me was the contempt that came with it. At dinner one night, Sabrina's husband, Julian, joked that I was low maintenance. He smiled across the table and said, "Eric seems like the kind of guy who doesn't need much fuss." Clara laughed harder than the joke deserved. I looked at Julian. "What does that mean?" He lifted his glass. "It's a compliment. You seem secure, independent." Clara touched my arm. "Don't make it weird." I hadn't made anything weird. I had asked him to explain his own sentence. Later, driving home, I told Clara the comment bothered me. She stared out the passenger window. He was being nice. He was calling me easy to ignore. No, that's how you chose to hear it. That's how it sounded. "You've been so sensitive lately." That phrase became useful to her. Sensitive, insecure, controlling, distant. Depending on what she needed, I was somehow all for. If I asked why Julian commented on nearly every photo she posted, I was insecure. If I asked why she came home after midnight without answering one text, I was controlling. If I stopped asking questions because I was tired of fighting, I was distant. Clara told people I didn't support her, but every version of support she wanted seemed to require me not noticing what was happening. One evening, I found her standing in the kitchen, smiling at her phone. The second she saw me, she turned the screen toward her chest. "Who are you talking to?" I asked. Her smile disappeared. "Why?" "Because you were smiling." "So now I have to report every conversation?" I leaned against the counter and kept my voice level. "I'm not asking to own your time. I'm asking why honesty suddenly feels optional." She folded her arms. "You don't get to police my friendships." "I'm not trying to police them." That's exactly what controlling men say. I remember looking at her and feeling something inside me go quiet. "I'm telling you I feel pushed out of my own marriage." "You're choosing to feel that way." That was Clara's favorite kind of answer. It made every wound my responsibility. A few days later, she said she needed space. Apparently, space meant a weekend spa package with Sabrina, Camille, and 2 other women from the group. Space also meant expensive dinners, long private calls on the back patio, and Julian sending her a bottle of wine after she had complained online about a stressful week. When the bottle arrived, I asked if Sabrina knew her husband was sending gifts to Clara. Clara rolled her eyes. Of course she knows. Did she tell you that? You're doing it again. Doing what? Trying to turn something kind into something ugly. I let it go, but I remembered the label on the box. Julian's name was on the invoice. The trip that eventually exposed everything was supposed to be a 4-night resort getaway. Girls only, Clara said. She packed 2 large suitcases for 4 nights. The morning she left, she wore sunglasses even though the sky was gray and kept checking her phone while I helped load her bags. Sabrina had covered part of Clara's room upgrade as a gift. Clara had been stressed, she said, and Sabrina wanted her to relax. At the curb, Clara took the handle of her suitcase from me. Please don't make this weird before I even leave. I haven't said anything. You have that look. What look? The one where you're already planning questions. I almost laughed, but there was nothing funny about it. Have a good trip, Clara. She kissed my cheek instead of my mouth. By the second day, photos started appearing online. There were pictures of champagne at check-in, matching robes at the spa, a wine tasting, and brunch on a terrace overlooking the water. Clara looked happy in every one of them. Not relaxed, not peaceful, energized. I wanted to be glad for her. Then I noticed a man's watch on the table in one brunch photo. It wasn't proof of anything. A waiter could have set something down. Someone from another table could have leaned into the frame. I told myself that immediately. Later, Camille posted a short video from the same brunch. In the reflection of a glass door behind them, I saw a man standing near Clara. The image was distorted, but the posture was familiar. So was the dark jacket. Julian owned a jacket like that. I had seen him wear it twice. Then, in another public photo posted by someone else, Julian was visible in the background near the resort bar. I texted Clara, "Is Julian there?" She did not answer for almost an hour. Then she wrote, "He had business nearby. He stopped in to say hi. Don't start." I replied, I asked one question. Her answer came immediately, and I answered it. 1 coincidence is annoying. 3 coincidences start looking like choreography. I considered calling Sabrina, but I stopped myself. I had no proof that she didn't already know Julian was there. Clara had made me feel ridiculous so many times that I had started pre-rejecting my own instincts before she could. That night, Clara texted me at 10:42 p.m. Going to bed early. Exhausted. Love you. I wrote back, love you too. She did not respond. When she came home 2 days later, she moved through the house like someone rehearsing. She hugged me with one arm. Her phone stayed in the other hand. She took a shower immediately, then put her travel clothes into the washing machine herself. Clara usually left a suitcase open for 3 days before unpacking it. That night, she had everything cleared away before dinner. How was it? I asked. Good. What was your favorite part? The spa. Did Julian stay at the resort? Her face changed for less than a second. Then she opened the refrigerator. No. He was in the photos. I already told you. He stopped by. For how long? She shut the refrigerator harder than necessary. I just got home. Can I breathe before the interrogation starts? It's not an interrogation. It feels like one. I wanted to tell her that innocent answers usually took fewer words. Instead, I said, fine. For the next few weeks, she was distant and strangely emotional. She kept her phone face down, carried it from room to room, and snapped at me over harmless things. When I asked if she wanted dinner, she said I was smothering her. When I gave her space, she asked why I was being cold. She started making abstract statements about marriage. Trust is a choice, she told me one night. Trust is also built on information. That's such a transactional way to see love. I studied her face. What exactly are you asking me to trust? She walked away without answering. 3.5 weeks after she returned from the trip, she told me she was pregnant. It happened on a Tuesday morning. I came into the kitchen and found a white paper bag beside my coffee mug. Inside was a small baby onesie with the words Dad Mode printed across the front. Clara stood near the sink with both hands pressed together, watching me. For one brief second, I felt pure happiness. It hit me before suspicion could catch up. My chest tightened. My eyes burned. I looked at the onesie, then at her, and imagined a future so quickly it embarrassed me. You're pregnant? I asked. She nodded. I crossed the kitchen and hugged her. She held me, but her body was stiff. How far along? Her arms loosened. Not far. Did you see a doctor? I had an appointment. You already had an appointment? It was just confirmation. Why didn't you tell me? I wanted to surprise you. That could have been sweet. It should have been sweet. But then she said, I already made a reservation for Saturday. I stepped back. For what? A dinner. Just Sabrina, Julian, Camille, and a few friends. A baby announcement dinner? She smiled too brightly. I thought it would be special. You planned a dinner before telling me? I wanted everyone to celebrate with us. Everyone? Before we even sit with this alone. The smile disappeared. Why are you reacting like this? I'm asking why our first conversation about our baby includes a guest list. Because I knew you'd overthink it. That sentence landed harder than it should have. I set the onesie on the counter. When is the due date? Her eyes moved toward the bag. The doctor said it's still early. That's not an answer. She exhaled. Late spring. I did the math in my head. Then I did it again. Clara and I had not been intimate for several weeks before the trip. She had said she needed emotional space, and I had respected it. We had slept together once after she came home, but the timing still felt wrong based on how she was talking about the pregnancy. What date did the doctor give you? Why are you turning this into a deposition? Because dates matter. You should be happy. I was happy. I'm confused. Her eyes filled with tears so quickly that I wondered whether she had practiced. Any real husband would be happy. I stared at her. A real husband is also allowed to know when his wife got pregnant. You're trying to make me prove I deserve joy. No, I'm trying to understand the timeline. She picked up the paper bag and shoved it toward me. Forget it. I knew you would ruin this. Then she went upstairs and closed the bedroom door. I stood in the kitchen with dad mode in my hands and felt ashamed for doubting her. That shame lasted 2 days. On Thursday evening, Clara left a prenatal appointment card half-tucked under a stack of mail. I wasn't searching for it. I was moving an electric bill when I saw the clinic name and the date. Under the appointment information was an estimated due date. I calculated the likely conception window on my phone. Then I checked it again using a second calculator because I wanted the first one to be wrong. The window centered around the resort trip. The math did not accuse her. It simply refused to lie for her. Clara walked into the room while I was still holding the card. She snatched it from my hand. What are you doing? It was under the mail. You had no right to read that. It has my future on it. It's my medical information. And you're asking me to announce myself as the father. Her face hardened. You are the father. Then why won't you tell me the estimated conception date? Because I'm not letting you turn my pregnancy into a spreadsheet. Clara. No. I'm done. You either trust me or you don't. That isn't how paternity works. She recoiled as if I had slapped her. You actually said it. You made me ask it. I didn't make you do anything. She walked out with the card pressed to her chest. That night, I barely slept. The next morning, I reviewed our shared credit card account. I wasn't digging through private records. It was an account in both our names, and I had every legal right to see it. There were resort charges, spa fees, a restaurant deposit, and a rideshare receipt. The rideshare had picked Clara up from the resort entrance at 1:17 a.m. on the same night. She had texted me at 10:42 p.m. saying she was going to bed. The destination was a restaurant lounge a little over 20 minutes away. A second ride returned her to the resort at 3:53 a.m. I stared at those timestamps for a long time. Once I accepted what they meant, I could not go back to being confused. That afternoon, Sabrina called Clara while I was in the kitchen. Clara answered on speaker because she was washing her hands. They talked about Saturday's dinner, flowers, and whether the private room would feel too formal. Then Sabrina laughed and said, "At least this place has decent beds." Julian complained about that resort mattress for 2 days. Clara turned the speaker off so fast she nearly dropped the phone. The room went silent. Sabrina's voice continued faintly through the handset. Clara looked at me. I kept my face neutral. "You said he didn't stay there," I said after she ended the call. "He didn't stay with us." "That's not what I asked." "He had a room because of business." "Nearby?" "Yes." "At the same resort?" She rolled her eyes. "Apparently. You knew that." "I didn't think it mattered." "You didn't think it mattered that your best friend's husband was staying at the same resort during a girls-only trip?" "You're reaching." "No. I'm listening." She grabbed her purse and left without telling me where she was going. She came back after 10 that night. Our doorbell camera sent me a notification when she arrived, though she had texted me at 9 saying she was already home and taking a bath. When I asked her about it, she said she meant she was on her way home. Every answer required me to ignore the words she had actually used. The message that ended my doubt came the next morning. Clara's phone was charging on the kitchen counter. I was making coffee. She was upstairs. The screen lit up. "Julian, did you tell him it's his yet?" I did not touch the phone. I did not open the message. I stood there and read the preview until the screen went dark. A second message appeared. "Julian, we need to keep this simple." I took a photo of the visible lock screen with my own phone. Then I stepped away from the counter because my hands had started shaking. Clara came downstairs a minute later. She saw my face, looked at her phone, and grabbed it. "What did you do?" "I didn't do anything. You were looking at my phone. It lit up in front of me. You're obsessed." Julian asked if you told me the baby is mine. Her mouth opened, but no answer came out. Then she found one. He was making a joke. "What part is funny?" "You don't understand the context." "Then explain it." "I don't have to explain private messages to you." "You do when the private message is about whether I'm the father of your baby." She pressed the phone against her chest. "You were looking for a reason not to trust me." "No, Clara. Arrogance made you careless." Her face twisted. "You sound insane." "Was Julian with you that night?" "What night?" "The night you left the resort at 1:17 and came back at 3:53. The color drained from her face. For the first time in months, she had no prepared line. I should have stopped there. I should have walked away and called an attorney immediately. Instead, I said, "Tell me the truth right now, and we can decide what happens privately." She stared at me for several seconds. Then her expression changed. The fear disappeared, and the calculation returned. "You went through my accounts." "Our account." "You tracked me." "I read a shared receipt." "You photographed my phone." "I photographed a message about my legal future that appeared in front of me." She shook her head as if I were the one who had crossed a line. "I cannot talk to you when you're like this." "Like what?" "Hostile." My voice had not risen once. She went upstairs, packed a small bag, and left. 5 minutes later, I called Grant. Grant had been my closest friend for years. He was not the person I called for comfort. He was the person I called when I needed someone to tell me what I did not want to hear. He answered on the second ring. "What happened?" I told him. There was a long silence. Then he said, "Do not confront Julian." "I already confronted Clara." "That's done. From this point forward, stop talking unless it's written down." "I need to know what happened." "No. You need evidence. Then an attorney. Then emotion." "She's pregnant." "I heard you. She says it's mine." "And another man asked whether she told you it was yours." I rubbed a hand over my face. "I want to drive over there." "To Julian's house?" "Yes." "No. I'm not going to hit him." "It does not matter. If you show up angry, he gets to make your anger the story. Do not hand him the microphone." I hated how cold Grant sounded. I also knew he was right. "Save everything," he continued. "Screenshots. Receipts. Dates. Do not alter anything. Do not threaten anyone. And do not post online." "What about Saturday?" "The dinner?" "She's still planning it." "Then you need legal advice before Saturday." After we hung up, I called my younger sister, Leah. I did not tell her every detail. I gave her enough. She went quiet in a different way than Grant had. Then she said, "Are you alone?" "Yes." "Good, because if Clara were there, I'd probably say something unhelpful." Despite everything, I laughed once. Leah's voice softened. "Do you still love her?" "I don't know. I love who I thought she was." "That's not the same question." "I know. She may be pregnant with your child. She may not be. You can care about the baby without letting her use you as a signature." "I don't want to punish a child." Refusing a lie is not punishment. I sat at the kitchen table and looked at the small onesie still inside the white bag. Leah said, "Loving her doesn't make you responsible for a child she may have made with someone else." That was the first time someone said the situation plainly enough that I could breathe around it. The next 2 days were not dramatic. They were worse than dramatic. They were quiet, practical, and humiliating. I gathered records I could access legally. The rideshare receipt. The shared credit card statement. Public vacation photos showing Julian at the resort. Call logs from our family phone account showing repeated late-night calls between Clara and Julian. A bank transfer from Julian to Clara labeled spa refund. Another transfer labeled weekend balance. The prenatal card details I had already seen. The photo of the lock screen message. Texts from Clara calling me paranoid before I had even accused her of anything. A voicemail she had accidentally left me when she meant to call Sabrina. Most of it was muffled, but one sentence was clear. Eric doesn't need every detail. He just needs to stop making everything difficult. I also found a restaurant reservation confirmation in the shared email account connected to our travel bookings. It showed a table for two near the resort on the same night as the rideshare trip. The reservation was under Julian's name. I did not have proof they had slept together. I had proof they had lied about being together, proof Julian was involved in the pregnancy conversation, proof money had changed hands, and proof Clara wanted me publicly committed before I could ask questions. That was enough to protect myself. It was also enough to ruin my ability to pretend. The attorney I met with was calm in a way that made the situation feel more serious. I showed her the evidence and explained the planned dinner. She did not react with shock. She reacted with questions. Had I signed anything? No. Had I made any public statements identifying myself as the father? No. Was Clara asking me to add the pregnancy to insurance paperwork or sign medical forms? Not yet. Did Clara have access to joint accounts? Yes. The attorney advised me to keep all communication in writing, avoid making threats, and not sign any paternity-related document without clarity. She explained that the exact legal consequences would depend on what happened next, but the safest path was formal separation, documented financial boundaries, and a legally recognized paternity test when available. Do not let a dinner, a post, or a family statement create a record you cannot easily unwind, she said. I asked whether I should attend Saturday's dinner. She studied me. Legally, you are not required to participate in an announcement. I think she's using the dinner to pressure me. Then you need to decide whether to decline privately or correct the record. But do not defame anyone. Present only what you can document. State what you do not know. Do not claim a conclusion a test has not established. That distinction mattered. I could say the baby might not be mine. I could say Julian and Clara had lied. I could say I would not claim paternity without testing. I could not truthfully say Julian was definitely the father. I left with a plan that felt less like revenge and more like building a wall between myself and a lie. I moved my paycheck to an individual account, as advised, while leaving enough in our joint account for household necessities. I froze one shared credit card used mostly for travel and luxury purchases. I canceled a deposit Clara had placed for custom announcement decorations because it was charged to that card without discussing it with me. I did not cut off groceries, medical care, utilities, or anything essential. Clara noticed the luxury card first. She called me from wherever she was staying. You canceled the floral deposit? Yes. That dinner is for our baby. That dinner is for your story. You're punishing me. I'm not funding a public announcement for a story you won't tell me in private. She lowered her voice. Julian's text was a joke. Then explained the joke. I already told you. He knows you've been insecure. How does that make the baby his topic? You twist everything. Was he with you at the lounge? Silence. Were you alone with him between 1:17 a.m. and 3:53 a.m.? You're making me sick. That is not an answer. I'm pregnant, Eric. Stress matters. Then stop creating it with lies. She hung up. 20 minutes later, I got a text from Camille. Clara is very upset. Please don't make Saturday awkward. She needs support right now. I called her. Camille answered cautiously. Eric, what did Clara tell you? That you're struggling with the pregnancy. What does struggling mean? She said you might not react well because things have been distant between you. Did she tell you I found a message from Julian asking whether she had told me the baby was mine? Camille went silent. What? She didn't tell you that? No. Did she tell you Julian stayed at the resort? He was there for work. Did she tell you she left the resort with him after 1 a.m? Another silence. Camille finally said, I don't want to be in the middle of this. You were already placed in the middle when she warned you about my reaction before giving me the truth. I don't know what the truth is. Neither do I. That's why I won't announce paternity before a test. Her voice softened, but only slightly. Just don't humiliate her. She chose the audience. I ended the call before it turned into another argument about my tone. The person I struggled most to contact was Sabrina. She was Clara's best friend and Julian's wife. She had trusted both of them. She had paid for Clara's upgraded resort room because Clara claimed she felt invisible and needed comfort. I did not want to destroy her life through a surprise speech. At the same time, I knew she might warn Julian if I approached her carelessly. I sent her a message asking to meet privately about something involving the resort trip and Saturday's dinner. I told her Clara did not know I was contacting her. She called immediately. What is this about? I need to show you something in person. Is Clara okay? I don't know. Is the baby okay? As far as I know. Then what is this? It involves Julian. Her breathing changed. We met the next afternoon in a quiet coffee shop. Sabrina arrived 10 minutes early. She looked composed, but she had a tight grip on her purse strap. I did not ease into it with small talk. I'm not asking you to take my side, I said. I'm asking you to look at the same facts I had to look at. I placed printed copies of the rideshare receipt and restaurant reservation on the table. Then I showed her the public photo with Julian in the background. She frowned. He told me he was there for one meeting. He told Clara the same thing? I assumed she knew. Clara told me he only stopped by. Sabrina looked at the rideshare receipt again. What is this? Clara left the resort at 1:17 in the morning. She returned at 3:53. She told me she went to bed before 11. That doesn't mean she was with Julian. No, this does not prove that by itself. I showed her the restaurant reservation under Julian's name. Sabrina's mouth tightened. Then I showed her the bank transfers and the photo of the message preview. Did you tell him it's his yet? Her face changed. For a moment, she looked less like the polished woman I knew and more like someone trying not to be physically sick in public. Could this be fake? She asked. No. Could he have meant something else? I asked Clara to explain the context. She refused. Sabrina stared at the page. I paid for that room, she said quietly. I waited. She told me she felt invisible in your marriage. She said she needed to feel cared for. I upgraded her because I thought she was hurting. I know. You knew? I found the charge. Sabrina pressed 2 fingers to her lips. I put her closer to our suite. That detail hurt her more than anything else I had shown. I'm sorry, I said. She looked at me sharply. Are you planning to do this at dinner? I'm planning to refuse the announcement. That is not what I asked. I believe the dinner is meant to force me to publicly claim the baby. Clara has already told people I'm emotionally cold and might react badly. If I say nothing, she gets witnesses to my acceptance. If I object privately afterward, she says I changed my mind. Sabrina looked out the window. You could cancel. Clara won't. She told me the dinner is happening with or without my support. Then don't go. I considered that. But she can still tell everyone I refuse to show up for my own child. She built this so every quiet option protects her version. Sabrina's eyes filled, but she did not cry. Are you going to accuse Julian of being the father? No, I cannot prove that. I'm going to state that paternity is uncertain, show why, and refuse to claim anything until there is a legal test. She folded the copies into a neat stack. I hate this. So do I. I hate that you told me. I understand. And I hate that I needed you to. I nodded. She took the copies with her. When she stood to leave, she said, Do not tell Clara we met. I won't. Julian will be at the dinner. I know. Her expression hardened. So will I. Clara came home on Friday evening. She had been staying with Camille, though she did not say so. She walked into the house as if she had every right to be angry with me. Tomorrow is still happening, she said. I assumed it was. Sabrina and Julian are coming. I know. You will not make a scene. I'm not planning to. She searched my face. Then what are you planning? To tell the truth if you try to publicly identify me as the father. I already told you that you are. You told me. You did not show me. You want me to get a paternity test while I'm pregnant because you saw one joke? I want a test because the conception window matches a trip where you lied about being alone with another man, left the resort after 1 in the morning, received money from him, and got a message asking whether you told me the baby was mine. Her face tightened. You have no idea what happened. That is exactly the problem. She stepped closer. Just smile for one night. You keep asking for one night when what you mean is the rest of my life. You'll look heartless. There it is. What? The point of the dinner. She looked away. I continued. This is not a celebration. It's a trap. You want me photographed smiling beside you while everyone congratulates us. Then if I question paternity later, I become the man abandoning his pregnant wife. You're disgusting. No, I'm paying attention. She started crying. I hated that part. Even knowing what I knew, I hated watching her cry. My body still remembered 7 years of moving toward her when she was hurt. I did not move. She wiped her face and said, "If you ever loved me, you would protect me right now." From what? She had no answer. From the consequences? I asked. I'm carrying a baby. And you're using that baby to silence the most important question in this marriage. She went upstairs. I slept in the guest room. The dinner was held in a private room at a polished restaurant Clara's friends liked. Not a banquet hall, not a huge public event. Just a long table, soft lighting, white flowers, and enough people to create pressure without looking like an audience. There were 9 of us. Clara wore a cream dress and had her hair styled. She looked composed enough that I wondered whether she believed her own plan would still work. Julian arrived wearing a dark suit with no tie. He shook my hand as if nothing had happened. "Eric," he said. "Big night." His smile was easy. I held his gaze. Possibly. Sabrina came in behind him. She did not look at me immediately. When she sat down, she placed her purse beside her chair and kept both hands in her lap. Julian leaned toward her. "You okay?" "Fine." Camille gave me a cautious smile, as if she were checking whether I had brought a weapon instead of documents. Clara had already primed the room. Dinner started with forced conversation. People discussed a new restaurant, a fundraiser, and someone's kitchen renovation. Julian talked too much. Clara laughed too brightly. Sabrina barely touched her food. I stayed calm. I knew that if I raised my voice once, Clara would point to the volume and ignore the evidence. After the main course, a server cleared the plates and brought in a small cake decorated with pale gold lettering. Clara reached under the table and squeezed my hand hard. "Smile," she whispered. "Don't ruin this." I turned slightly toward her. "I won't ruin anything that's real." Her fingers tightened. Then she stood. Everyone quieted. Clara placed one hand lightly against her stomach, though she was not showing yet. "We have news," she began. I stood before she could finish. For half a second, the room brightened with expectation. Camille smiled as if she thought I was about to make a sentimental speech. Clara's expression froze. I kept one hand on the back of my chair. "She's right," I said. "There is news. But before anyone congratulates me, I need to correct the part of this story I was never allowed to ask about." No one moved. Clara whispered, "Sit down." I looked at the table. Clara is pregnant. I hope the pregnancy is healthy. I will not insult her, and I will not make claims I cannot prove. But I am not announcing myself as the father because the timing is uncertain, and because Clara and Julian have both lied about what happened during the resort trip. Julian leaned back in his chair. "This is not the place." I turned toward him. "You helped choose the place." "I did not choose anything." "You knew about this dinner." "Everyone knew." "Exactly." Clara reached for my sleeve. "Eric, stop." I removed her hand gently. "I asked to handle this privately. You refused. You told people I might react badly before you gave me enough information to react honestly." Camille looked at Clara. "What is he talking about?" Clara's face was red. "He's paranoid. He's been spiraling for weeks." I took a slim envelope from inside my jacket and placed the first page on the table. "This is the estimated conception window from the prenatal information Clara left visible. It overlaps with the resort trip." Clara snapped. "That is private medical information. I am not sharing medical details beyond the date that affects whether I am the father." Julian stood halfway from his chair. "You need to sit down." I looked at him. "No." His jaw tightened. I placed the rideshare receipt beside the first page. Clara told me she went to sleep before 11. This shows she left the resort at 1:17 in the morning and returned at 3:53. Clara's breathing became uneven. "I went out with friends." "Which friends?" She looked at Camille. Camille immediately shook her head. "Not me." One of the other women at the table looked down. I placed the restaurant confirmation beside the receipt. The destination matched a reservation for 2 under Julian's name. Every face turned toward him. Julian gave a short laugh. "This is absurd. I had a business dinner. At 1:30 in the morning? Drinks ran late. With Clara?" "I did not say that. You also haven't denied it." He looked at Sabrina. She was watching him with an expression I could not read. I placed a printed public photo on the table. Julian was at the resort longer than Clara admitted. Sabrina accidentally mentioned he complained about the mattress for 2 days. Clara said, "Everyone knew he was there." "I didn't." "That's your problem." "No. The lie is your problem." Julian pushed his chair back. You're reading into things because you feel left out. I nodded once. That might have worked before the message. The room went still again. I placed the photo of Clara's lock screen on the table. Did you tell him it's his yet? Camille covered her mouth. One of the other guests whispered, Oh my God. Clara stared at the page. Julian's expression did not change, but his left hand closed around the edge of the table. I continued. I did not open Clara's phone. The message appeared while it was charging on our kitchen counter. A second message said, We need to keep this simple. Julian said, You photographed her private phone? I documented a message discussing whether I would be assigned paternity. This is insane. I placed the bank transfer records on the table. Julian sent Clara money after the trip. One payment was labeled spa refund. Another was labeled weekend balance. Sabrina finally spoke. Her voice was soft. What were those payments for? Julian looked at her. Nothing. Nothing. She covered some expenses. I paid for her upgrade, Sabrina said. Clara began crying. Sabrina, please. Sabrina did not look at her. I paid for your room because you told me you felt invisible. Clara's face collapsed. I did feel invisible. So you used my money to meet my husband? I didn't say that. Then say what happened. Julian held up one hand. Everyone needs to calm down. Sabrina turned to him. Were you with her that night? He looked around the room. This is not the place. Sabrina's voice shook, but she did not raise it. That is not a no. Clara gripped the edge of the table. This is exactly what Eric wanted. He wanted to humiliate me because he can't stand that I have a life outside him. I looked at her. I asked you to tell me privately. You cornered me. I asked whether the baby might not be mine. You accused me while I'm pregnant. I asked a question the evidence required. Julian pointed at me. You're embarrassing a pregnant woman. No, I said. I'm refusing to be assigned a child so you can keep your marriage clean. His face finally changed. For the first time, the charm disappeared. You have no idea what you're talking about. Then deny it. I don't answer accusations made by unstable people. Grant had been right. Julian wanted my anger to become the story. I kept my voice even. You don't need to answer me. Answer your wife. Sabrina did not blink. Were you with Clara at that lounge? Julian looked at her, then at the table. We talked. Clara inhaled sharply. The room seemed to contract around that sentence. Sabrina said, You told me you were meeting a client. We talked because she was upset. For nearly 3 hours? It got complicated. Clara stared at him. Julian. He did not look at her. That was the moment she understood something I had suspected but could not prove. Whatever Julian had promised her, he had never intended to claim her in public. She was not his future. She was a problem he expected me to absorb. Clara turned toward me, crying harder now. You're hurting the baby with all this stress. I felt something inside me settle. Then stop lying in front of the child you claim to care about. You're doing this to me while I'm pregnant? You tried to do this to me because you're pregnant. Camille looked at Clara with visible disbelief. Did you tell us Eric might react badly before he even knew the dates? Clara wiped her face. I said he was emotionally distant. Camille shook her head slowly. You prepared us to judge him. I needed support. You needed witnesses, I said. Clara slammed her palm against the table. You cannot prove Julian is the father. I waited a second before answering. You're right. The room went silent. Clara seemed startled that I agreed. I cannot prove Julian is the father, I said. I also cannot prove I am. That is exactly why I am not signing, claiming, announcing, paying, or pretending until there is a legal paternity test. You would abandon your own child over a misunderstanding. If the child is mine, I will meet every responsibility through the proper process. But I will not accept legal fatherhood as a reward for staying quiet. Julian scoffed. Listen to yourself. Legal process? This is a family. I looked at him. You plan to use mine to protect yours. He did not answer. Sabrina pushed her chair back and stood. Julian reached for her wrist. She pulled away. Do not touch me. Sabrina, let's go home and talk. No. Don't make decisions in public. Her laugh was small and empty. You already did. She picked up her purse. Before leaving, she looked at Clara. I brought you into my life because I trusted you. Clara started to stand. Sabrina, please. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. That sentence was not a full confession, but it was enough. Camille closed her eyes. Sabrina looked at Julian again. You're coming home separately. Then she left. Julian stood and glared at me. You're going to regret this. I did not respond. Threats become useful when the other person is angry enough to say them in front of witnesses. I gathered the papers into the envelope, leaving copies for no one. Clara stared at me through tears. You planned this. I prepared for what you planned. You destroyed everything. No, I refused to hold it together with my name. I picked up my coat. Behind me, voices began to rise. Julian tried to call Sabrina. Camille asked Clara whether the affair had happened once or more than once. Clara kept repeating that nobody understood. I left before the yelling started. The truth had already done what yelling never could. By the time I reached the parking lot, my hands were shaking again. I sat in my car for almost 10 minutes without starting it. There was no victory in that moment. My marriage was over. The woman I had loved was pregnant, possibly with my child, possibly with someone else's. A second marriage was breaking apart because of the same betrayal. There was a baby at the center of all of it who had done nothing wrong. I felt grief, anger, relief, and shame in alternating waves. Then my phone started filling with calls. Clara called 11 times. Julian called twice. Camille sent one text. I thought you were being sensitive. I was wrong. Grant wrote, do not answer anyone tonight. Leah wrote, are you safe? I replied only to Leah. Yes, going somewhere quiet. I spent that night with Grant. The next morning, I sent the evidence and a written summary of the dinner to my attorney. I included Julian's threat, the names of everyone present, and the exact statements I remembered. Then I sent Clara one message. From this point forward, please communicate with me in writing regarding the house, finances, medical matters affecting legal paternity, and separation. I will cooperate with a lawful paternity test and meet any obligations established by the result. I will not make a public claim of fatherhood before that process is complete. Her answer came 12 minutes later. You are abandoning your family. I did not respond. By Monday, the social version of the fallout had begun. Clara removed the planned pregnancy announcement from her accounts before posting it. Sabrina stopped answering her calls. Camille told the group that Clara had concealed Julian's presence at the resort and had warned everyone in advance that I was likely to react badly. People who had spent months viewing me as insecure suddenly realized they had been given a script. Clara had taught them what to think of me. One dinner taught them why. Julian tried to control the damage. He told Sabrina that Clara had been emotionally vulnerable and that he had made a serious mistake. He insisted he never meant for anyone to be hurt. He claimed the money transfers were reimbursements and that the paternity message was taken out of context. Sabrina asked him to provide the context. He could not do it. She consulted her own attorney, separated access to discretionary accounts, and began reviewing financial records. I knew that because she sent me one brief message asking whether I would provide copies of the transfer information through counsel. I did. Clara called me cruel for sharing it. I reminded her that Sabrina was legally entitled to protect herself from conduct involving her husband's money. A week after the dinner, Clara appeared at the house without warning. She still had a key. My attorney had advised me not to lock her out without following the proper process, so I had not. I was at the dining table reviewing separation paperwork when she entered. She looked tired. Not glamorous. Not polished. Just tired. Can we talk? She asked. Is this about logistics? It's about us. I don't think there is an us to discuss. She sat across from me. You humiliated me. You tried to make me claim a baby in front of the same people you had already turned against me. I was scared. Of what? She looked down at her hands. Losing everything. You were willing to let me lose everything instead. That's not fair. What part isn't fair? You think this was some calculated plan? Julian asked whether you had told me the baby was mine. He panicked. And you? Her mouth tightened. I didn't know what to do. You had options. You could have told me the truth. You could have canceled the dinner. You could have agreed to testing. Instead, you told people I was cold so they would shame me into accepting your version. She began to cry quietly. I thought Julian cared about me. There it was. Not a full apology. Not concern for Sabrina. Not concern for me. Julian, what did he promise you? I asked. He said he would support me. With spa refunds. Her face twisted. You don't have to be cruel. I'm not being cruel. I'm asking what support meant. He said he would make sure I was okay. Did he say he would leave Sabrina? She looked away. No. Did he say he would claim the baby if it was his? He said we needed to wait. For what? For things to settle. I leaned back. He was never going to choose you. Her eyes filled again. You don't know that. He tried to make me the father. She shook her head, but there was no conviction in it. I thought if you accepted the baby, we could fix things. The sentence was so selfish that for a moment I could not process it. You thought raising a child conceived with your best friend's husband would fix our marriage. I didn't know whose it was. That makes it worse, Clara. I was afraid you'd leave. So you tried to remove my choice. I thought you loved me enough. I looked at her for a long time. Love does not require me to participate in fraud. It wouldn't have been fraud if the baby was yours. You did not know that. She wiped her face. I still don't. Then why did you demand that I announce it? Because I needed something stable. You needed a shield. No. Yes. She stood and paced toward the window. You don't understand what it was like being around them. Sabrina has everything. Everyone listens when she speaks. Everyone notices her. I was always the one being invited because she liked me, not because I belonged. And Julian made you feel like you belong? He saw me. I almost laughed, but the sadness of it stopped me. He saw someone he thought he could use without losing anything. She turned toward me. And what do you see? My wife trying to make me legally responsible for the consequences of her affair. She flinched. I made a mistake. A mistake is one lie told in panic. You built a timeline, a dinner, an audience, and a story about my character. I was trying to protect the baby. No, you were trying to protect yourself. She pressed a hand to her stomach. So that's it. You just leave. I'm separating from you. I'll cooperate with the paternity process. If the baby is mine, I will be present and responsible. But our marriage is over. You can't decide that alone. I can decide whether I remain married. You're punishing a child. I didn't walk out because you were pregnant. I walked out because you tried to make me the father of a lie. She stared at me. For the first time, she seemed to understand that tears were not going to move the boundary. She left 10 minutes later. After that, we communicated through written messages and attorneys. The separation process was ugly but controlled. Clara accused me of financial abuse because I stopped funding optional social expenses. My records showed that I had continued paying my share of housing, food, medical insurance, and other necessities while freezing only luxury charges and unauthorized event spending. She tried to include my name in a draft family statement about the pregnancy. My attorney objected in writing. She asked me to attend another medical appointment as the father. I declined until testing could be arranged through the proper process, though I told her I would attend any appointment necessary for a legally approved prenatal test if her doctor considered it safe. Clara hated the phrase proper process. It meant she could no longer turn emotion into an obligation before facts existed. Julian's involvement with her faded quickly. At first, he called constantly. Then Sabrina separated from him and started reviewing their finances. After that, his messages to Clara became shorter. I know because Clara forwarded several to me during one of her attempts to prove that Julian had manipulated her. Can't talk right now. Need space. My attorney says not to discuss this. We'll handle the test when necessary. The man who had sent her money to keep things simple suddenly found her very complicated. Clara had believed his attention meant he would eventually choose her. Instead, the possibility of paternity turned her from an escape into a liability. That did not make me happy. It made me tired. Camille contacted me once more a few weeks later. She told us you were distant, she said. She didn't tell us she was hiding half the story. She told you what she needed you to believe. I'm sorry. I appreciated the apology, but I did not need a friendship with anyone from that circle. Thank you, I said. Then I ended the call. Sabrina's message came later. I hated how I found out, but I needed to know. I understood both halves of that sentence. I replied, I'm sorry the truth reached you that way. I tried not to blindside you completely. She answered, you warned me. I just didn't believe it until he couldn't answer. We did not become friends. That would have been strange. We were two people connected by the damage caused by people we had trusted. She protected her assets. I protected mine. Several months later, the paternity test was completed through legal channels. The baby was not mine. Julian was confirmed as the biological father. When my attorney called with the result, I sat alone at the same kitchen table where I had first seen the dad mode onesie. I expected to feel vindicated. Instead, I felt the last piece of my marriage fall away. Until that moment, some small irrational part of me had kept open the possibility that the baby was mine and that my future would remain tied to Clara in a permanent way. The test closed that door. I was relieved. I was also grieving a child I had imagined for less than a minute on a Tuesday morning. Clara called after she received the result. I let it go to voicemail. Her message was quiet. You got what you wanted. I listened twice before deleting it. I had not wanted any of this. I had wanted my wife to come home from a trip and tell me the truth. I had wanted the baby announcement to be real. I had wanted the years before it to mean what I thought they meant. But wanting those things did not obligate me to accept a substitute built from pressure and deception. The divorce moved forward. Sabrina also filed to end her marriage. Julian faced financial and personal consequences that money and charm could not erase. His friends did not abandon him entirely, but the polished image cracked. People who once treated him as untouchable started asking questions he could not smooth over. Clara lost Sabrina, most of the social circle, and the future she believed Julian had quietly promised her. She did not lose everyone. Her family supported her through the pregnancy, as they should have. The baby deserved stability and care, no matter how the adults had behaved. I never attacked the child. I never posted the test results publicly. I never used the baby as a weapon. I simply refused to become the legal father of someone else's child because two adults thought I was passive enough to absorb the consequences. Some people still believe the dinner was too public. One of Clara's relatives told me I could have walked away privately. Maybe I could have. But Clara had chosen the private room, the guest list, the cake, the flowers, and the announcement. She had already told those people that I was cold and difficult. She wanted social pressure to do what truth could not. Had I stayed silent, she would have left that room with photographs, congratulations, and witnesses who believed I had accepted paternity. Then every later objection would have looked like abandonment. I did not expose her pregnancy to entertain strangers. I corrected a lie in front of the exact people being used to enforce it. I lost a marriage. I lost trust in my own memories for a while. I had to relearn that asking for clarity was not control and that refusing manipulation was not cruelty. I also learned to stop apologizing for noticing what was happening in front of me. Clara wanted a room full of witnesses for my happiness. She got witnesses for the truth instead. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.